The sun rose slowly over the rooftops of Munich, painting the skyline with soft shades of orange and pale blue. The streets were still quiet, except for the faint sound of trams rolling along the tracks. Lucas pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders as he crossed the university courtyard. The winter air was sharp, his breath visible with every step he took. Inside the main building, the walls smelled faintly of old wood and polished floors. Students were scattered about, their voices echoing lightly under the high ceilings. Lucas walked past them, his mind already on Anna. She was his closest friend at the university, someone he admired for her focus and determination. Today was a big day for her. A major presentation in front of Professor Klein, known for his stern gaze and unforgiving standards. When Lucas found Anna in the library, she was sitting at a long oak table, papers spread out around her like a protective shield. Her blonde hair was tied back neatly, though a strand had slipped loose and rested against her cheek. She looked tired but determined, reading her notes with quiet intensity. "Morning, Anna," Lucas said softly, sliding into the chair beside her. She looked up, forcing a small smile. "Morning, Lucas. I barely slept. This presentation is everything. If I fail, I might lose my scholarship." Lucas felt a pang of sympathy. He wanted to help, to ease her burden. He glanced at the scattered notes, at the diagrams drawn in pencil, at the carefully written paragraphs. Yet part of him thought the structure was messy. He had always been good with order, with making things clearer. He believed he could improve it for her. "Don't worry," he said gently. "You'll do great. But maybe you could use some help with the slides. Let me look at them later tonight." Anna hesitated, her pen hovering above the paper. She exhaled slowly. "All right. But Lucas, please don't change too much. I know how I want to explain things." He nodded, though in his mind he already had ideas of how to make everything better. Outside the tall windows of the library, the bells of Frauenkirch rang in the distance, echoing across the old city. Lucas felt a quiet thrill inside him. He believed he could save Anna from failure, even if it meant taking risks. Little did he know, the very help he wanted to give would turn into the weight that dragged both of them down. The evening settled over Munich with a quiet drizzle, the kind that coated the cobblestones with a glossy sheen. Lucas sat in his small apartment on the third floor of an old Bavarian building, the hum of the tram outside blending with the soft tapping of his fingers on the laptop keyboard. Anna had emailed him the presentation slides. Her message was brief. "Please check and polish, but remember, don't change too much." Lucas opened the file and scanned through each slide. The structure felt fragile to him. The information was solid, but in his eyes, it lacked power, lacked precision. He remembered the sharp expression of Professor Klein, and a deep sense of urgency gripped him. He told himself that if Anna stood in front of the class with these slides, she might stumble. "Just a little adjustment," he whispered. 1 hour passed. Then 2. The drizzle outside turned into a steady rain, the lights of passing cars flickering across his walls. Lucas did more than adjust. He rewrote entire sections, rearranged diagrams, deleted points that he thought unnecessary. By midnight, the presentation looked nothing like the original. He leaned back, staring at the glowing screen. For a brief moment he felt proud. He believed he had given Anna something sharper, something worthy of the professor's approval. Yet a small voice at the back of his mind whispered doubt. He ignored it. Instead, he saved the file and sent it back to Anna with a short message. "Trust me, this will help." Outside, the rain kept falling, tapping gently against his window, as if warning him of the storm yet to come. Morning light spilled over the university square, turning the wet cobblestones into mirrors. Anna sat in a cafe near the Isar River, a cup of steaming coffee warming her hands. She had opened the file Lucas sent her, and her heart sank as she scrolled through the slides. It was not hers anymore. The structure was different, the words no longer carried her voice, and the diagrams seemed unfamiliar. She felt as though a stranger had stolen her work and returned it under her name. She clenched her jaw, frustration rising in her chest. Yet when she thought of Lucas, she hesitated. He had meant well. He had stayed up late for her, worked hard for her. To confront him now felt cruel. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. "Ready for today? You'll shine, I promise." She typed and deleted a reply several times before finally sending. "I hope so." The cafe's door opened with a chime, letting in a gust of cold air. Anna glanced out the window, watching students hurry along the streets, their umbrellas tilting against the wind. She pressed the laptop shut. There was no time to rebuild. No time to return to the original slides. She would have to present what Lucas had created. A sense of unease settled over her. It was not fear of failure alone. It was the feeling of losing her own voice. The lecture hall was vast, with wooden seats rising steeply and walls that seemed to echo every sound. Professor Klein sat at the front, his arms folded, his sharp eyes scanning the room like a hawk waiting for the smallest movement. Anna sat in the second row, her laptop on her knees, the slides Lucas had remade glowing on the screen. Her hands trembled slightly as she tapped her fingers on the keyboard. Lucas sat beside her, whispering encouragements. "You've got this," he said softly. Anna forced a nod, though her throat felt tight. When her name was called, she stood, every step towards the podium heavier than the last. The room fell silent. She looked out across the hall, rows of students watching, and beyond them, Professor Klein's unblinking stare. The first slide appeared. It was clean, polished, far more formal than anything she had written. "Good morning," Anna began, her voice steady at first. "Today I will present." But as she continued, the words on the slides did not match the rhythm of her prepared speech. She stumbled, tried to adapt, lost her place. Her sentences became tangled, her breathing shallow. From the corner of her eye, she saw Lucas leaning forward, lips pressed tightly, as if he could guide her through sheer will. But he could not. The slides advanced, each one pulling her further away from her own knowledge, further into Lucas's version of her work. The weight of silence from the audience grew heavier, pressing down on her shoulders. Anna's voice faltered as she reached the middle of the presentation. The diagrams Lucas had redesigned were precise, but they were also unfamiliar. Numbers and terms stared back at her, ones she had not prepared to explain in such detail. She glanced at Professor Klein. His eyebrows were raised slightly, his expression unreadable, yet heavy with judgment. I mean, Anna stammered, trying to recover. She felt the warmth rise to her cheeks. Her hands shook as she gripped the edge of the podium. In the second row, Lucas whispered under his breath, "Just keep going, keep going." But the whisper was useless. Anna was drowning. The hall was painfully silent, broken only by the faint buzz of the projector. Every second stretched endlessly. The students in the audience exchanged glances, some leaning forward, others shifting uncomfortably. Anna forced herself to breathe, to push forward, but the slides betrayed her again and again. Her words felt foreign, rehearsed by someone else, not by her. By the time she reached the final slide, her voice was no longer steady. It cracked, her confidence shattered. "Thank you," she whispered, almost inaudibly. The applause that followed was scattered and thin. Professor Klein rose slowly from his seat, his sharp gaze fixed on her. "Miss Anna," he said in a deep, measured tone. "Stay after class." Anna's stomach dropped. The lecture hall emptied, the sound of footsteps echoing against the wooden floor. Anna remained by the podium, her laptop closed, her hands folded tightly together. Lucas lingered near the back, torn between stepping forward and keeping his distance. Professor Klein approached with the slow precision of a man who rarely wasted words. He stopped in front of Anna, his eyes narrowing slightly. "That presentation," he began, "was not your work, was it?" Anna's lips parted, but no words came. The truth weighed heavily in her chest. She had worked hard on her own slides, yet what she presented was something else entirely. "It lacked your style," Klein continued. "I have seen your essays. I know your mind. This was not you." Anna swallowed hard. Her voice trembled as she whispered, It was adjusted." "By whom?" Before she could answer, Lucas stepped forward. By me, Professor. Klein turned his gaze towards him. And you are? Lucas, sir. A fellow student. I only wanted to help. Klein's eyes remained fixed, cold, and sharp. Help is not the same as taking ownership of someone else's voice. Remember that. The words cut through Lucas like a blade. Anna lowered her head, ashamed and exhausted. She felt betrayed, not by malice, but by misplaced care. The professor walked away without another word, leaving silence that felt heavier than any scolding. The courtyard outside the university was buzzing with students, their laughter and conversations floating on the crisp winter air. Anna and Lucas walked side by side, yet a space seemed to separate them wider than the cobblestone path beneath their feet. Finally, Anna stopped. She turned to him, her eyes filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. Why, Lucas? Why did you change everything? Lucas's chest tightened. I thought I was helping. I thought if I made it clearer, stronger, you would shine. Anna shook her head slowly. But it wasn't me. I was standing there, presenting something I didn't understand, in my own name. Do you know how that felt? He looked at her, guilt pressing against his ribs like iron. I'm sorry. I didn't think. That's the problem, she cut in. You didn't think about me. You thought about fixing something that wasn't broken. Her words hung in the air, sharp and cold. She turned and walked away, her figure swallowed by the crowd of students. Lucas remained standing, his hands deep in his coat pockets, the weight of regret heavier than the Munich winter pressing down on him. The streets of Munich stretched out before Lucas like a maze of stone and light. He wandered aimlessly through Marienplatz, the great clock tower looming above him as the figures of the glockenspiel danced mechanically. Tourists cheered, yet their joy felt distant, muted against the storm inside his chest. He walked past the Victualienmarkt, where stalls of fruit and flowers filled the air with color and fragrance. Yet nothing pierced the heavy fog of guilt clouding his mind. Everywhere he turned, he saw Anna's face, the tremble in her voice, the pain in her eyes, the sharpness of her words. He had thought himself a savior, but he had become the architect of her humiliation. At the Isar River, he leaned against the stone railing, staring at the water rushing beneath. The current was relentless, carrying leaves and branches swiftly out of sight. He wondered if regret could ever be carried away as easily, or if it clung to the soul forever. Night settled, and the city lights shimmered on the wet streets. Lucas turned away from the river, his heart heavy with the knowledge that some mistakes could not be undone. Days turned into weeks. Anna avoided Lucas, her footsteps always directed elsewhere when she saw him in the courtyard or the library. Her laughter echoed with her friends, but never reached him. Lucas felt the absence, like a shadow following him everywhere. His apartment felt colder, the walls emptier. He buried himself in books, in lectures, in meaningless tasks, yet nothing dulled the ache of the broken trust. One evening, he saw Anna from afar, walking under the glowing street lamps of Ludwigstrasse. She was with her classmates, smiling faintly. For a moment, Lucas considered calling out, but his voice froze. He no longer had the right to bridge the silence. The distance between them was no longer just physical. It was carved into the very foundation of their friendship, a wound that time alone might not heal. And yet, deep inside, Lucas carried a fragile hope that someday, somehow, he might be able to make it right. Winter deepened in Munich. Snow began to fall softly over the rooftops, covering the city in a blanket of white. The streets sparkled under the glow of streetlights, yet for Lucas, the beauty of the season only sharpened his loneliness. He sat alone in the university library, the same place where Anna had once smiled at him, trusting him with her work. Now, her absence echoed louder than any silence. He opened his notebook, pen resting on the page, but the words refused to come. His thoughts circled endlessly around the same truth. His help had not lifted her. It had silenced her. Outside the tall windows, the bells of Frauenkirch rang again, just as they had that morning weeks ago. But their sound now carried a different meaning. Not a promise of hope, but a reminder of what had been lost. Lucas closed his eyes, listening to the distant chimes fade into the cold Munich night. The weight of silence remained.